guys. So I've recorded my top 16 horror films video and forgot to do an intro at the start. So hence why I'll be wearing a different t-shirt to what I will be in that. So as I say, it's just a quick intro regarding this. So as I said a few videos back, I was going to trial some movie reviews, but I was going to do a sort of like a top 15, top 20 sort of list first of all, and obviously it's Halloween, so I thought I would do horror movies. So horror movies is something that I do watch quite a few. I'm not I would say I'm not a huge connoisseur. Originally my plan was I was going to get my sister, who's a huge horror fan, to come and do a joint video with me, but she's got other things, obviously, unfortunately, and not had the time to sort of take part in this, which is a shame, because her insight into horror movies is a lot better than mine. But I thought I would do sort of my top 16. I know it's a bit random. 16, why 15, why not 20? 16 was what it was. So there are a few films in this list that I would have liked to have included, but obviously didn't cut the mustard. And these are my top 16, so they're not going to be the same as yours. So don't hate me for my top 16, but I would be interested to hear what others would have included, or what I've included you wouldn't have done. So I would be quite interested to see in regards to that. So without further ado, I will kick straight into the video. So thank you guys, as always, for your continual support, and I'll be going off on my jollies soon, but by the time you watch, well, hopefully I will be just going just as this video goes live. So again, thank you for your support. Much love out to all of you, and if this is if this is a success, then I'll do other films. So maybe my top 10 Marvel films, or top 10 superhero films, top 10 thrillers, top 10 comedies, the Star Wars films, rank them in order of my preference. Lots of different things potentially that I could do, as well as all the other things that I'm doing as well. So thanks guys, and enjoy the video. Hello, and this is my top 16 horror movies. I know it's a bit random, top 16, but go with it and we'll see how it goes. So they're not in any particular order, so they will be in alphabetical order, I guess. So we'll start with the first one. So we'll start with a classic and end in a classic. So that's all good and all positive. So the first one is Ridley Scott's Alien. So this was made in 1979. It's a bit of almost like a B movie, really. I know that 20th Century Fox picked it up. I believe it'd been battered around a lot of places prior to them picking it up, and obviously I think that was on the back of the success of Star Wars, that they wanted to go with like a science fiction horror type thing, starring Sigourney Weaver, Tom Skerritt, Veronica Cartwright, Harry Dean Stanton, John Hurt and Ian Holm. Apologies if you see me looking down or up there, it's because I've got a whole thing here which I've written out regarding the films. So it's sort of set in the future, and on board a mining vessel called the Nostromo. So the crew, obviously there are spoilers, so if you haven't already seen it, I apologise, but that will be for all of them. So they wake up from hypersleep to a strange signal. They land on a planet which is a planet called LV-426, and they stumble across a crashed air vessel, spacecraft. They then go in and find loads of eggs. One of the crew gets something attached to their face, and the rest is history. I'm not going to go into everything, but I'm not going to give it a full breakdown. But for me, this is possibly one of the best science fiction films ever made. Ridley Scott, he's made it so claustrophobic. To me, it's more of a science fiction thriller than it is a horror. Though the tagline is "In space, no one can hear you scream," which is absolutely correct. So, great film. The creature design, H.R. Geiger, it's just absolutely phenomenal. It's amazing. It was all sort of done physical effects, so there was no CGI really back then. So the models were all handmade. The creature effects, obviously the costume for the alien, absolutely amazing. This would be, I would say, on a lot of people's definitely top 50, if not top 10 horror films of all time. And I would, I watch this at least once or twice a year, as I do with the next film that's on this list. So for me, this is a solid 8.5 out of 10 for me. So that's Ridley Scott's Alien. Number 2 on this list, again, as I say, they're not in any particular order. And as I say, there will be spoilers for all of the films. So following on from Alien, we have James Cameron's 1986 Aliens, which is the follow-up to Alien. In my opinion, this is the best out of all of the films. The story, the action, is very much almost like a war movie, really, in space. So after what happened in Alien, Ripley's vessel was found, taken back to space station, where she's reawoken, and then in the period that she was found, they had colonized LV-426 and made it like a mining company, a mining team had gone down there to terraform the planet, and then the communication is lost. So they asked Ripley to go back along with the Colonial Marines to find out what's happened. The cast in this one, again, is amazing. So Sigourney Weaver reprises her role as Ellen Ripley. Then you've got Michael Biehn, Bill Paxton, and Bill Paxton, in my eyes, is brilliant in everything he does. So absolutely brilliant and phenomenal actor. Rest in peace, Bill Paxton. Lance Henriksen and the rest. There's so many other cast members. And they go along with somebody from the company as well, called Carter Burke, and he's played by Paul Reiser. A lot of people will know him from a lot of comedies back in the 80s. He was also in Beverly Hills Cop as well. So they go onto the planet and find that there's no one there. So they sort of go hunting around for the colonists, and they find a little girl called Newt, and she is literally living like, like a homeless person, really, and sort of hiding in the ducks away from the aliens that have captured all of the colonists and taken them off. So again, I'm not going to go into too much detail regarding obviously what happens but it is just brilliant. And I think this was the start of really of the lot of the CGI stuff. But again, the model work, you know, the costumes are just absolutely amazing, and it isn't just the main characters within the film; it's also the supporting cast as well. They're just brilliant. It just works so well as a team. For me, this is definitely nine out of 10, and it's just, well, what can I say really? It's just an amazing film, and you know, I watch Alien and then Aliens back to back always. The rest of the films in the franchise are not really that great. Alien 3 does have its own merits, but it's not a brilliant film. And you know, a lot of people say that you can never beat the first one. You can, and this is an instance of where that is the case. You know, there aren't many films where the second one is always better than the original. I can only think of 3. This is one, Godfather 2 is another, and Empire Strikes Back over Star Wars is the third. So yeah, definitely a 9 out of 10 for this one. Number 3 on this list. So number 3 is Army of the Dead. It's directed by Zack Snyder, who'd previously done a remake of Dawn of the Dead, Justice League, things like that. And it's a zombie, I would say zombie comedy stroke action film, which is set in Las Vegas. Anything set in Las Vegas is a winner for me. Stars Dave Bautista. For me, he's not the greatest actor in the world. He has had some notable roles. Obviously, Drax the Destroyer in Guardians of the Galaxy, and that's probably the best thing I remember him for. I believe he was in Spectre as well, but it's a good film. These guys have been recruited to go into Las Vegas, which is all walled off. It's a walled off city now with the zombies inside. So they've been recruited to go in and retrieve some money from a vault inside one of the casinos before a nuclear bomb is dropped on there, destroying all the zombies and obviously everything inside it. So Dave Bautista gets this team together, you know, safecrackers, etc., to go in and retrieve this money, and it's obviously what happens within that. It's a good film. It's fun, action packed. You know, if you like that sort of thing, you know, it's a good film to watch. Is it like brilliant? You know, is it I mean, it's on my list, so it is a good film, and it is quite campy in places, but I enjoyed it. I do enjoy it. I've watched it a few times, and it's a long film. It's nearly 2 hours and 45 minutes long, roughly. So it's a long old film, and as I say, anything with Vegas and I love it. So yeah, definitely worth watching. I would say it's definitely a 7 out of 10 for me. Lots of action, lots of thrills and spills. Quite a sad ending. So I thought it was quite a sad ending, but it was good. So that's Army of the Dead. And next, so number 4, we've got Cabin in the Woods. So this was written by Joss Whedon. He co-wrote it, I think. So Joss Whedon obviously did Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He directed the first Avengers movie. So it's about a group of friends. They go out to the country to go into a cabin of the woods just to get away from things. And it is your typical teenage cabin in the woods, really. So they literally go in and they find something which, again, I'm not going to go into too much details, and it sets off this chain of events. But what they don't realise is that the place is monitored by this society, and they have got loads of different monsters. So depending on obviously what they do will trigger off which monster then will go and attack them. and it is your who's who of monsters. It really is. It is really good. And you know, a lot of people are probably thinking, why have you added that to your list? It's just a bit of fun. It really is a bit of fun. It's got half decent cast. Chris Hemsworth's in it, so Thor, Jesse Williams, Fran Kranz, Kristen Connolly, and it's even got a cameo from Sigourney Weaver in it as well. So it is definitely worth a watch. If you like that sort of campy sort of thing, then I think you will really enjoy it. Again, a lot of these films I'm sort of talking about, I do watch quite regularly, you know. So it is fun. It is a fun film to watch. So I'd say I'd give this probably a 7. You're probably not going to get anything less than a 6 on this. But yeah, this is definitely a 7 film. So number 5 on this list is a Stephen King classic, and it's Christine. So directed by John Carpenter. So there will be a few John Carpenter films on this list, as well. There'll be sort of a couple of Stephen King as well. So it's based on the 1983 novel of the same name. It's about a 1958 Plymouth Fury, and it's a little bit psychotic, shall we say? And it's in one respect, it's a bit of a love story, really, between this sort of mild, sort of man and geeky guy called Arnie Cunningham, and he falls in love with this car, and he sort of does it up from scratch, really. It was when he gets it's a bit battered and whatever. So, and it's sort of a love story. Obviously, the car itself starts to sort of wreak havoc, sort of killing off people. It goes on a little bit of a murder spree, really, if I'm absolutely honest. It's a great film. I watched it probably about a week, 10 days ago, actually. Yeah, it's a very good film. I've never read the book, so I can't really comment in regards to that. But Keith Gordon, who plays Arnie, does a fantastic job. So, you know, I'm really sort of, you know, I was really impressed. And considering it's quite an old film as well, it's, you know, it's the special effects and stuff like that are really good. And, you know, the car is just beautiful. It's a beautiful car, you know. So yeah, it's a really good film, and hence why it's on this list, because it's a lot of fun, and it's a bit of a cult classic, really. And I'd give this 7.5 out of 10. You know, it is a good film. Lots of jump scares, you know, a little bit spooky and stuff like that. So it's all good. It's all good. So that is Christine. So next on the list is Dawn of the Dead. So the 1978 original, directed by George A. Romero, the master of zombie movies. He obviously following on from Night of the Living Dead, which obviously was groundbreaking. I can't even speak now. Groundbreaking in itself. So it's really good, and it's about sort of like these different groups of people who all end up in this big shopping mall, and it's all about consumerism and, you know, and stuff like that. But it's a great film. It's a great film. Special effects done by Tom Savini, who does have a little bit of a cameo in the film as well. It is really, really good. I wouldn't say it's massively gory. And, you know, compared to the remake by Zack Snyder, but this just blows that away. I mean, it's not always about like the gore and things like that. It's, you know, it's the, you know, the filmmaking, special effects, the cinematography, all that sort of thing. So to me, this is better than the remake. It has got, obviously, zombies ripping people apart and eating like their innards and stuff like that. But it's a really good, it's a really good film, and masterfully blends horror, action, and social critique, just to really create a sort of a massive, great cinematic experience. There were a couple of they did have a slightly different ending originally to what is actually filmed, and they tested it and it didn't really sort of come off. So the ending that you get now is basically the rehashed version that they decided to do. But it is a classic, and it would, again, it'd be in a lot of people's top tens for their horror films of all time. So yeah, that's 1978's Dawn of the Dead. So next on the list, this is a guilty pleasure of mine, and it's Dog Soldiers from 2002, directed by Neil Marshall. So if you haven't never seen this, especially if you are in the States, I would definitely try and dig it out and watch it. It's a great film. It's a really, really good fun film. So it's a British horror action film. So basically it's a bunch about these group of soldiers on a training exercise in the Scottish Highlands, and they are attacked by some werewolves. And they find solitude in this cottage, but what they don't realise is the cottage belongs to the family of the werewolves. So it then becomes a bit of a cat and mouse, sort of they're blocking themselves in while the werewolves trying to get in to get them. It's got a great cast: Kevin McKidd, Sean Pertwee, Liam Cunningham from Game of Thrones. It was obviously Davos Seaworthy, and it's brilliant. It is a real guilty pleasure. If you haven't seen any of Neil Marshall's work, The Descent was another great film, and that's definitely worth a watch as well. Obviously, it hasn't made my list, but it is definitely a great film, and that is really quite scary, especially if you're very claustrophobic. But this is brilliant. It's all shot really at night, and the werewolf vision as such is all black and white. So as if you're looking through their eyes. It's great fun. It's quite funny. Some of the things that the soldiers say to each other, the jokes. It is brilliant. It is really good. And I would definitely give this sort of an 8 out of 10. Watch it. Give it a go. And I'd love to hear what you think. About it yourselves. So yeah, that's Dog Soldiers. So again, next on the list is 1980s Friday the 13th. Apart from Halloween, sort of the ultimate slasher movie, really. Directed by Sean Cunningham, or Sean S. Cunningham, I should say. All takes place at a sort of a campground called Camp Crystal Lake, where a load of kids have gone, or what do they call them? Camp counsellors. That's what I was trying to think of what they were called. But the camp counsellors there, and they sort of got picked off one by one. Quite a slight sort of turn in the, who it is at the end. Obviously, anyone expecting to see Michael Myers, obviously the protagonist for the rest of the films, it's not him. So, but it's great. It is a really good film, and it is very dated. I'm not going to lie. It is very dated, and the gore is it's for its time. But back then it was the state of the art. So I've got no qualms about that, and happily watch that. There are a few films that came out around about the same time that I can't watch, just purely because I just look at them and think this is awful. And then there are other films like this. The second one's really good as well, but I've chosen this one to go on the list. So, you know, Suspense, or the music by Harry Manfredini, or I apologise if I get that wrong, but it's great. You know, that whole, I can't do it very well, but that whole it just scares you. So that's the original Friday the 13th from 1980. So for this next one, I've put two films together. So that's Halloween from 1978 and Halloween 2 from 1981. Both of these were directed by John Carpenter. So as I say, it did say there would be more Carpenter on here. So it tells the story of Michael Myers, who starts off as a little boy and murders his sister. He gets put into a institution and then looked after under the care of Dr. Loomis, played by Donald Pleasance. It also stars Jamie Lee Curtis, so who then reprises the role right up until the latest one, which was a year ago, 18 months ago. So still obviously going on, but I believe that was the last one she was going to do. So he obviously escapes from the mental institute, goes back to Haddonfield, which is where it's all set, and sort of starts murdering people throughout the town. He wears a mask, which originally was a William Shatner mask. The truth be told, so long and short of it, gets caught up. They catch up with him as he tries to kill Laurie Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, and Dr. Loomis is obviously on the trail and shoots him. And then at the end, he goes over the railings and lands on the floor. He goes out there. Surprise, surprise, he's not there. And then the second one follows pretty much straight on from that. Laurie's taken to the local hospital, obviously because she was injured during her escape from Michael Myers, and he sort of tracks her down to the hospital. He starts bumping off all the hospital staff and orderlies, and obviously patients as well, and it just follows on from that. It's a great film. They're both great films, and I again, another one I tend to watch back to back and sort of turn it into just one film. It is great. A lot of John Carpenter stuff. I am a huge John Carpenter fan, and that's not just his horror stuff. Things like Escape from New York, Big Trouble in Little China, all great films. So, anything that's got his name to it, I do tend to watch. Some of the later stuff wasn't too great, but this, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So again, another 8 out of 10 for me. So that's Halloween and Halloween 2. So the next film on the list is A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. Now, this was the first Nightmare on Elm Street film I actually watched, and I watched this before I watched the first one. Second one, obviously, all the others. So the film was directed by Chuck Russell, and Robert Englund plays titular character of Freddy Krueger. I have met Robert Englund. What can I say? The man is an absolute legend. I will insert a photograph of us together here, and he just steals the show, but he's such a lovely man. My sister is absolutely obsessed with Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy Krueger, and when we both met him at the same time, and she was properly starstruck. But the going back to the film, which is obviously what this is all about, it's about a group of kids that are in a hospital, and these kids all have issues with sleeping, They obviously have the same nightmares with Freddy Krueger in it. So they do everything they can to stay awake, from coffee to drugs, smoking, the lot. It brings back the original character, played by Heather Langenkamp, and it also includes Patricia Arquette, and I believe that was possibly her first film role. She plays Kristen, who's one of the main characters or of the film. It's brilliant. Each of the characters brings their own take to the film, so they're all different things. And I preferred this to the original. In fact, this is probably my favourite one out of all of the Nightmare on Elm Street films. So yeah, I would give this definitely a 7.5 out of 10. Great film. So, but that covers off obviously Freddy, Jason, and Michael now off the list. So they were all definitely going to be in it at some point. But yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street 3 is an absolute must if you like that sort of thing. And then it's closely followed by the original. So that's A Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors. Right, so the next one, Salem's Lot, from 1979. Now, this actually was a TV movie. So it was a made-for-TV movie. And it was a two-parter. It was directed by Tobe Hooper, obviously from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Poltergeist. So that sort of fame. This is probably one of the very first films that scared the living crap out of me. I was probably around about 9 or 10 years old, and I was staying with my grandparents. My cousin, who's 2 days older than me, came down and was staying with us as well, and we sat and watched it. And there's one particular scene in it where one of the characters is asleep in bed and he hears a tapping at his window, and it's his friend who's been turned into a vampire, and he's floating, and it just scared the shit out of me. And then my cousin would, like, that night he would tap on the door really lightly, and I'd never been so scared in my life. I've only ever watched this one other time since then, and that was when I was an adult. And yeah, it was great. So there's a really good cast in this. David Soul from Starsky and Hutch. You've also got Bonnie Bedelia, who was in Die Hard 2. You've got the great actor James Mason. It's just an amazing film. So it's set in this town or called Jerusalem's Lot, and it's like people start to go missing, and the town are sort of like, we don't know what's going on, and then it obviously evolves that this house on the top of the hill has a vampire in it who is then killing off the residents and stuff like that. It is creepy as hell. It's brilliant though. For a made-for-TV miniseries or movie back in the late 70s, it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. The only thing that, funny enough, this is a Stephen King book. The only two other miniseries I watched was the original It, again, Stephen King, with Tim Curry as Pennywise, and that is out of that and the remake, the original is the best one for me. And then the other one was The Stand, and again, another Stephen King book, and that was a great film as well. So going back to Salem's Lot though, I would say that if you have watched the remake, the HBO remake, a lot of people, or I've read a lot of people say that it was rubbish. If you haven't seen the original, go back and try and get hold of it, you know, and watch it, because it is good. It is very good. And like I said, these are all my opinions, not, you know, and people will obviously go, well, why have you added that on? It's, you know, it's rubbish. These are, you know, if you didn't like it, you didn't like it. You know, it's not for everybody. But yeah, I definitely would thoroughly recommend this. And again, I would put this up there, sort of an 8 out of 10. Acting's a little bit campy from time to time, but you know what? I think it makes it. And I think, I've never read the book, but I think that it would, you know, potentially it could be the writing of the book and the screenplay and all that sort of thing. So, so yeah, that was Salem's Lot. This list is from 1973, and it's The Exorcist. So, directed by William Friedkin, and it's based on the 1971 model. It's based on the 1971 novel by William Peter Blatty, and it's about the possession of a young girl by the name of Regan, played by, absolutely brilliantly played by Linda Blair, who's just a kid herself. And, you know, she starts to do all sort of weird things. Her mother starts to obviously get a little bit worried about it, calls in a couple of priests just to sort of come and see her. And then that's when all hell breaks loose. So I remember having a conversation with my mum. She went to see this at the cinema, and there were a lot. You hear all the stories about there were ambulances outside of the cinemas with people being sick and passing out and stuff like that. My mum can confirm that actually happened at our local cinema. Back in the day, where there were ambulances outside because people were passing out, being sick in the aisles of the cinema, because it was that grotesque and disturbing. It was deemed as one of the video nasties back in the day when it was sort of due to go on to VHS, and it did get released. I want to say probably in the 90s, but there were scenes that were cut out of it, and then they put the scenes back in. There was a notorious one where Regan was doing what they call the spider walk, where she was walking down the stairs on her back, on her hands and feet, going down the stairs. It was, I mean, it was how they did it. It was, I don't know, but it was brilliant. Well done. The priests were played by Jason Miller, who played Father Damien Karras, and then Father Lancaster Merrin, who was played by the great Max von Sydow. I'm not going to spoil it, because if you haven't watched it, I would thoroughly recommend you do. It can be a little bit slow at times. It can be quite slow to watch, but it is worth watching. And it goes into sort of a lot of sort of demon stuff and things like that. So that's it for this. Obviously, The Omen came out roughly around about the same time. Obviously, I haven't included that on this list, but that is another good film to watch if you do ever get the chance to watch it. So it is, and I think it was possibly the first or one of the first horror films to actually be nominated for an Oscar. So that's quite a big achievement, because horror movies never get looked at for things like that. So and that was a big achievement. So again, that was The Exorcist. Okay, so next on the list, we're going to have a little bit of campy fun, and it's The Lost Boys from 1987. So Joel Schumacher directed this, and it's set in a fictional seaside town of Santa Clara in California, where they have loads and loads of like disappearances, murders and all that sort of thing. And it's about a family, so a mother and her two sons, they've recently obviously got divorced. She's got divorced, and she's taken the boys to go and stay with her father, or their kid's grandfather. So the kids are played by Jason Patric and Corey Haim, and they go and stay with their grandfather, and then they obviously go out and meet the locals and stuff like that. They come across like a gang headed by charismatic David, played by Kiefer Sutherland, in possibly what I would say is possibly one of his greatest roles, because he's just one of those your typical sort of like cool, vampire-ish, before all that crap Twilight rubbish. This was the ultimate cool vampire, and he's like heads this gang. He turns Michael into a vampire, and Sam then recruits the Edgar and Allan Frog, so the Frog brothers, who own a comic book shop, and they try and save him, and it's brilliant. It is so good. The soundtrack is brilliant. Some great music on that film, and it works out that the person who is trying to date their mother, who runs this shop, like a coffee shop or something, he's the head vampire who's then trying to take over them as well. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And like I said, it's very campy in places, but it is great 80s nostalgia, and it's I'm probably getting shot by the females who watch my videos, but this is far better than Twilight ever was. So if you do like your vampires and you haven't seen The Lost Boys, check it out, because it is great. Right, so the next one on this list is from 1996, and it's Scream, directed by Wes Craven and written by Kevin Williamson. This film is what brought back slasher movies back. It brought it way back into the in the modern times. So starts off with Drew Barrymore, and it's a little bit misleading, their poster for this, because it shows that Drew Barrymore is like one of the titular characters. She's only in it for about 15 minutes before she's bumped off, but it's brilliant. And it's all set in this school. This killer called Ghostface is going around killing the kids, and sort of this group are trying to obviously stay alive. Then they get this reporter turns up who wants to sort of look into obviously the murders and all that sort of thing, played by Courtney Cox, and then sort of the dopey police officer Dewey. It's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott, absolutely fantastic. So another great film. Love a great twist at the end as well. I'm not going to ruin it if you haven't watched it. I mean, you've probably seen all these films anyway, in fairness, but it's a great twist at the end, and it leaves it open for a certain character to come back, if they ever wanted to do so. So yeah, absolutely brilliant. Again, another 8 out of 10. Wes Craven, back to his usual self. Great slasher film. The penultimate one is for another one from 1980. You'll find that all these that have all been sort of 70s, 80s films. They've not really been, apart from a couple, they've not been any sort of modern day ones. But this is The Shining by Stanley Kubrick, or directed by Stanley Kubrick, and obviously another Stephen King novel. I was quite late to the party with this one. I probably only watched this for the first time probably about 2 years ago. So actually probably during lockdown. So I'd never seen it before, didn't know what all the fuss was about, and I just thought, you know what, I'll pop it on, we'll have a look and we'll watch it. Oh my god, what a great film. It's about this family that go to look after a hotel during the closed season, sort of during the winter months when the snow's on the ground, and it's like Jack Torrance, he's basically there to sort of be their caretaker. So he looks after the hotel, does anything that needs doing and stuff like that. Played by Jack Nicholson, and I must say, apart from him as the Joker in Tim Burton's Batman, this is probably one of his best roles. His wife Wendy, played by Shelley Duvall, and their young son Danny, played by Danny Lloyd. And there's some weird things going on in this hotel. If you like ghost stories, this is right up your street. So he starts to see things happening, and it slowly starts to play with his mind, and he sort of starts to slowly transform into this just maniac. It just takes him over, and you all know the iconic "Here's Johnny" as he's ploughing the axe through the door of the bathroom with Shelley Duvall the other side of it. Everybody, even if you haven't seen the film, everybody's probably heard of that one line. Watching sort of documentaries and stuff that I've read, I know that Shelley Duvall was properly treated badly during this film by Kubrick. He really did. I don't know whether he just didn't like her, but he was horrendous to her. It was so horrible. And it's it's tragic when you sort of hear how people are mistreated, like back in the day on film sets. I mean, I say that's only stuff I've read. Like, obviously I don't know 100% that that's true, but it's stuff that I've read. The ending is really good as well. And if you haven't seen The Shining, or you're late to the party like I was, you've got to watch it. It is really good. And I know I said you got to watch it to all of these, but they are genuinely really good films. Kubrick, his sight in what he wants to bring to the screen is brilliant. Apparently, Stephen King did not like it. He didn't like the adaptation of it. I guess if you write the book, you have your own interpretation of how that book is going to be. I guess Kubrick's vision wasn't what it was, so a bit disappointing, but it is a masterpiece in my eyes, and I would give this a 9 out of 10. So it's up there with the best of them. So that's The Shining. Finally, we are on to number 16. As I said earlier, these are not in order. These are I've literally just done it in alphabetical order. And this is probably my favourite horror film of all time. It's another John Carpenter film, and it's The Thing. So this is from 1982. Kurt Russell as R.J. McCready is just, Kurt Russell, whatever he's in, he always such a great actor. He does such a great job. But it's about a group of Antarctic research people, and they come across this dog, and helicopters chasing it, and they're trying to shoot the dog. So they take the dog in, helicopter crashes. But what they don't know is the dog's been infected, and with an alien life form, which can mimic any living material. So a little bit like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, I suppose, in one respect. And it slowly starts to take over people. it's again, it's another claustrophobic film, and it's sort of about people's trust in other people. It is absolutely brilliant. It's a great body horror film. The practical effects in this are unbelievable. It's just so suspenseful. You don't know who's human, who's an alien, and it just keeps you guessing all the way through. There's one specific scene where they're all tied to all tied to chairs, and they've all had blood taken, and MacReady's like testing the blood with a hot piece of copper. It is brilliant, absolutely brilliant, and I can't say enough about this film. It's just brilliant, and I watch this probably 3 or 4 times a year because and I don't get bored of it. I can watch this over and over again. Obviously, the prequel came out 2013, something like that, which was supposed to be like what happened at the Norwegian camp, which obviously caused the dog to be infected, to obviously be the start of the thing. It was alright, but it wasn't anything special. It was alright, it was watchable, but it gives you that, this gives you that sort of paranoia. Is it me? Is it them? Who is it? Until you get to the very end of the film and there's just 2 people left, MacReady and Childs, and you just don't know whether they're both human, whether they're both aliens. One of them's an alien, one's human, and they're just sitting in the cold, and you don't know, and it just cuts, and you don't know how it ends. It is brilliant, and this is 10 out of 10 for me. 10 out of 10 film. Watch it if you haven't watched it. so that's my top 16 films. So I would love to hear what you think. It's my first movie reviews. I've had to look at my screen here in front of me just to pick up a few things and things like that. So it might seem a little bit bitty in places, and I apologise for that. It's my first time doing something like this, so it's never going to be 100%. So hopefully you've enjoyed it, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on your top horror films of all time. Obviously, if enough people enjoy this, we'll go on to something else. We'll do something else, maybe comedies, thrillers, sci-fi, whatever. If you've got any ideas what you'd like me to do, then I'll do them, And then obviously as we get established, I'll actually start reviewing like individual films and stuff like that. So that's it for this video. Thank you very much again for watching and taking your time. I know it's a little bit of a longer film than normal, but I wanted to get this out as quickly as I possibly could. Obviously it's close to Halloween. It's probably going to be just after, but oh well. But thank you for watching. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, especially if you have come across it randomly through YouTube. Give me a thumbs up. That always helps with my algorithms to sort of help make more people view the video. And again, if you leave comments, I'll always reply. Please be nice. That's all I ask. But that's it. Stay safe, everybody. Happy Halloween, and until next time, Wayno out.